economy world we are living in today. I'll ask my brother also to introduce himself. My name is Bakari Machumu, Managing Director of Mwananchi Communications.
Bakari, thank you very much. I thank you so much and thank you to everyone who's tuned in. My name is Sitholizwe Mdlalose. I'm the Managing Director of Vodacom Tanzania, and really excited to be having this engagement about the digital economy and the digital divide, and how much we still have to close in terms of that digital divide and what the benefits of a true digitized economy are. So really looking forward to this discussion and the many to follow as over the week as well during the course of the week. So thank you.
Thank you, Sito. And for our viewers, our listeners, we apologize for not being on air as we started our program. And now we are set to go. Sito, you coming in as Managing Director of Vodacom Tanzania. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you're taking it from Isha Mhendi, who was your predecessor here. And you seem to have hit the ground running. How have you been able to set in the Tanzanian market so far?
Oh, Bakari, I love this market. It's a phenomenal market. I think it's a market with lots of promise. It's a market that is certainly from a mobile perspective, you know, really steered not just on what we'd call the core mobile, but also on financial services, on everything that we're growing still on our IoT platforms, which we'll touch on later. But I think so much promise in this market. We have a few challenges too, unlike any other, as any other market. And some of the challenges are quite unique in terms of how they play out, and I'm sure we'll discuss those as we discuss how we're going to pursue this target that we collectively want to pursue, which is around broadband penetration in Tanzania. But so far, I'm enjoying it. Thank you.
You're enjoying it, and karibu-san. And coming from South African market, you have experience of dealing with the emerging markets. And Tanzania now is at the level of kind of discovering itself, kind of playing a lot of catch-up, but the opportunities are huge. I believe you must have gotten a thing or two which now you bring into this market compared to a sophisticated market like South Africa, and coming to Tanzania with a lot of opportunities and potentials.
Yeah, absolutely, Bakari. You know, I've worked quite a lot with our operations in the DRC. So when you look at sort of land mass, similar type of geographies, etc. I've currently sit on the Safaricom board as a non-executive director, and so you know, I've had a real view of, I suppose, similar markets in that regard with Tanzania. But I think the benefit and the strength that we have as a global organization is being able to apply different elements of what we've learned in different markets. And so coming through from South Africa, there may be some things that are done particularly well, or maybe have gone a little bit further in terms of just the overall broadband scene. And I think things like just big data analytics, that type of thing, where South Africa has maybe gone a little further. Also just on broadband penetration, on the fixed market, you know, being able to harness some of those learnings and be able to, in a very relevant way, plug into understanding what we need to do in Tanzania.
Interesting, and I like the way you're putting it. Absolutely true. That at times it does not matter how developed your economy is. What matters mostly is the willingness and the preparedness of actually being able to learn, unlearn, and relearn.
That's right.
So at some stages we are struggling at just getting to learn to unlearn.
That's right.
Before you go into that. We've seen a situation of the US and China struggling for 5G, but one would have hoped that the US would have been first, but China came, and then that struggle. So it does not matter at times that you are developed, what stage are you in. I think it's that ability to learn to unlearn first. What's your view on that one?
Bakari, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think in this era, the ability to learn and unlearn is very important. You know, one of the values that we have at Vodacom, and we call it the spirit of Vodacom, one of the things we talk about is something around failing fast and learning fast.
Right.
And it's really around how do you adopt an agile approach to what you're doing to be able to try and attempt and actually sort of, if you learn from your failures quick enough, you move. But also, I think to the point you raised, I think one of the things that we should choose not to do or try not to do, try and train ourselves not to do, is to not be dismissive of other people's learnings. Because often we're quick to put a local narrative on what we feel, yes, but it's going to be unique in this way. And it's true, it could well be unique. But actually the way another country has rolled out fiber across the country is worth learning. And yes, there'll be differences, but I think it's that ability to not dismiss benchmarks and therefore be able to the word you used, to unlearn what has got you this far and understand how others have gotten a bit further. And I think that's a really key element in this digital era.
Absolutely. It's all about that continuous improvement. And as you said, you put it, you dismiss someone's achievement, but you don't know the environment, what they've gone through. Looking at Vodacom and with the digital economy journey, you have had a number of initiatives, and of recent we've been talking a lot more about digitization. And I'm wondering, being in the telecom sector, we in the media, as businesses, how do we relate with government priorities, for instance? When we talk of digital transformation as a country, and I want to read this digital transformation priority for the Tanzanian government for the next 5 years to come, for us to get it right. For instance, one of the objectives is to achieve 80% of broadband access and infrastructure. Number 2, integrating ICT across industries, building ICT skills and capacity, looking at digitizing government service delivery, as well as making efficient use of scarce resources. So these are a lot of initiatives happening in the country. And with it, it comes with a number of opportunities. So I wonder, how will you be able to capitalize on the government priorities, the country priorities, and your strategy at Vodacom, making it be at the level of offering solution? We have a story in the media, but let's go with yours first.
Wow, Bakari, that is such a, I mean, each of those priority pillars is so loaded in terms of what it could achieve. And I really applaud the Tanzanian national ICT policy. I believe it is extremely well thought through. And really paints the picture and the vision for what that could look like. And a lot of those pillars that you read out from there demonstrate that. And I think, you know, when I look at Vodacom as a business, we are completely committed to the target and the target that the government would also be pursuing, which is this 80% broadband penetration by 2025. And I think it's extremely important when you ask how do the two merge. If I just take that one alone and I look at the vision of Vodacom's vision is, Vodacom Tanzania's vision is really to lead Tanzania into the digital age. That's our vision, that would do that and would change lives through technology. Because we believe as we lead into that digital age, there's so much change that comes from the benefits of that digital economy. And you know, I look across at Tanzania, and I've been here for some months. There's something about the young population in Tanzania. There's something that is very key in seeing the way that it's a very sort of innovative and daring population. And I think all those things will lead to an ability to harness this digital economy. And so from our perspective at Vodacom, we've seen a growth in the digital economy as we have sort of enhanced our ambition. So whether we look at different areas and different sectors such as agriculture, which is so key to this country and the success of the country, how connecting the farming and agricultural world has brought economic benefits is incredible to see. We have a platform called Mkulima. We have about just over 138,000 smallholder farmers who are able to plug into that platform to be able to receive information, weather information, all sorts of information around that, and be able to get the benefits from being on this platform to increase their productivity and their output, to give them methods of having financial services, savings, loans, payments, receipts, etc. And I think all of this serves to grow that part of the economy. And so we see a very real example and illustration where digital connectivity has really brought growth in the economy. And I could say the same for many others, Bakari, for education, how we have ambitions to digitize that to the benefits that can come from connectivity, from maybe online schooling where you've got in different areas perhaps shortages of teachers. How can you achieve a broader sort of education that would reach further? And we've got an Ifahamu learning platform where we've together with the Tanzania Institute of Education really digitized some of the books and started to put some of those syllabuses online. And that's what we talk about. That's what gives us a bounce in our step in the morning when we get up and we talk about a digital economy and digital transformation. So we're really excited, and I'm really excited to see how the national ICT policy paints that out in the pillars that you read there.
Interesting, and of course I believe that has been enabled by the fact that as we speak, we are talking of having subscribers close to 30 million Tanzanian, and we are talking of internet penetration being at 25%. But when we were going through the pandemic in the early stages, when we were forced to take our kids out of schools. Yes. Now the challenge became how do we keep them to continue their learnings? You find that a number of schools were not connected. So that gives an opportunity. If you have that broadband connectivity, if you reach out to that target of 80%, that means we can learn now from wherever you are. You don't need to be necessarily in a classroom. And with that, I think we're also seeing a growth in the area of even service providers.
Yes.
In your league, you have like 66 big companies.
Maybe too many.
As the market consolidates, maybe get to reduce in numbers and improve services. But also we are seeing a number of incubation hubs coming up. At the moment, we have about 20 of them. And these ones, I think they will play a key role in giving an opportunity for startups to come up and bring a solution. On the side of social media, for instance, yes. Access to internet, access to this mobile phone, you are seeing now online shopping becoming a thing. That's which right. is growing very fast. Talk about health sector. Ooh. You go to the hospital today, you have your card, you are treated, or you can pay by M-Pesa.
Yes, that's right.
So those are the opportunities which come. But what are the challenges of seeing us from the telecom point of view, having more benefit from this opportunity? I believe we have not exhausted them.
And you're right. I think, Bakari, to talk about the scale of the opportunity, you know, we wouldn't do it justice in this short sort of conversation, and so I'll definitely be, you know, looking forward to the conversations as we come. But I think as we pursue that, there are various things within a market context that lead to an enhancement of being able to achieve the broadband connectivity and coverage. And I think in particular, when we look at the market in Tanzania, there are a few challenges that really stand ahead of us, that we collectively, not just ourselves, but in private and public sort of partnership, need to work out solutions that take us forward on these matters. And some of those that I'd probably just mention in sort of a high level, you know, I'd say the first thing, surprisingly or not, to what you mentioned earlier when I said, oof, maybe it's too much in terms of the number of players. What we're in is a unique situation in Tanzania. We are really in a situation where the industry as a whole largely suffers from a lack of profitability. And what this does is it really starts to undermine or reduce the investment that people are willing to put in. What you need is an industry that is sustainable enough to be able to generate returns for any investors, and therefore continue to invest.
Absolutely.
And that's how the cycle works. But for a number of different reasons, we have a few challenges. And I mean, I'll list a few just from conversation. I think firstly, you may be aware there's some conversation around the pricing in Tanzania. Tanzania has amongst the lowest pricing for data in the world, which in and of itself is not an issue at all. But ultimately, the industry is pricing significantly below the cost to produce a gig of data. And so that is unsustainable. And ultimately what that does, and we've seen it happening, if I was to look at just even our own results over the past 3 years, the capital investment has reduced over the years because it's all about return on investment. And so I think there's an element there which needs to be addressed from a market structure point of view. But that goes hand in hand, not just with the pricing, but the cost. So what does it cost us to produce a gig of data? And there are many inputs that go into that, the bulk of which is really around the network cost, and there's some inputs and challenges where we need to work out some ways forward there together with all the stakeholders, and it's things around spectrum. Bakari, about efficient use of spectrum. Spectrum's an incredibly scarce resource, but incredibly important for the industry in terms of how we deploy our network, and ultimately the cost of deploying that network based on how we have allocated and used spectrum resources. And so there are a lot of conversations that we're engaging with our regulator on spectrum, on ability to make, I suppose, more spectrum available for the growth and for the growth in traffic and capacity. That's one area. There are other areas like the cost of fiber that the industry is sort of involved with and things like that. So the cost of producing a gig of data is still too high. The price is too low, and we've got two problems there, which give you an end result of an unsustainable industry and therefore a lack of investment. That being said, that's not the only challenge. There are other challenges that the industry continues to deal with and to look at, and again we continue to engage, as this will not be, we won't achieve the 80% broadband alone, and therefore we won't solve some of these challenges on our own. One of those is we believe there is a fairly heavy sort of sector-specific tax on this industry in the country. You know, when one looks across, we've seen studies from the GSMA, an independent body, that really talks about the Tanzanian market having I think the number's about 34% of the revenue is taxed. If you compare that, let me say that differently, sorry. The tax amounts to 34% of total revenues. If you're to compare that with, say, for example, the average in East Africa, that is about 26%. And if you compare that with Europe, that's probably about 21%. So the burden on the industry, again, will contribute to this thing that slows us down a little bit because it undermines investment, and therefore you don't get the full thrust of everything that you'd want to from investing and continuing to do that. And that's one part of it. I'll touch on the usage gap in a second, but those are just some of the thoughts around some of the challenges in terms of what we need to deliver for our customers to be able to get that 80% broadband coverage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important you're mentioning the need for businesses to continue engaging in this discussion, conversation with the regulators, the government for that matter, because at the end of the day, this is a sector or an industry which is an enabler to bigger things to come.
That's right.
And as you are talking, I was reminded, I was thinking of the opportunities and challenges coming with the Africa Free Trade Area. When you compare the level of taxation, 34, 26 East Africa, right, and then Europe below 20, okay, 21. So that tells you if we open up borders within the continent, yes, that means we will not be in that competitive advantage to be able to compete with other countries. So these are discussions which, captain of the industry, we need to continue having with our regulators. And if we get that understanding, I think when we see the benefit coming from it, I don't think it's any wise person will look at it as a bad thing.
Yes.
But let me touch on...
sorry, Bakari, maybe if I can as well, just, you know, there's an element which I've dwelt on there, which is really around, you know, maybe what we would, if you're using different headings, one might call a sort of a coverage gap. So all of what I spoke about in terms of investing, etc., is to meet a coverage gap, so that we get the coverage to 80% of the population. But there's also another gap that's maybe not talked about as much, which is the usage gap. Yes, and the usage gap is effectively, to put it simply, is those who have broadband coverage, but are effectively not utilizing it. And that is also another challenge in terms of harnessing the benefits of a digital economy, because it's all well and great for me to provide that coverage, but to the extent that it's not being utilized, my returns don't come through, but secondly, the customers don't get the benefit of that digital economy. And the key driver, and that usage gap, by the way, in Tanzania specifically, is closer to the 60% mark of people, as a percentage of people who are covered but aren't using. And the biggest issue in that particular, or biggest driver to that, is it's a device ecosystem. Because someone can't make use of a broadband network if they don't have the device to be able to connect onto that. And so again, as we engage further and broader, and when I say further, I'm talking suppliers, I'm talking regulators, ourselves, in terms of the part we need to play to make more internet-ready devices available. So more 3G and 4G devices, and to really start to lower or restrict the 2G devices which can't connect onto the internet, and therefore are feeding into a lot of that sort of usage gap, and people aren't benefiting from being able to access and use the internet. So I just thought that was one to mention there as well, just in terms of challenges.
Very important, very important. I mean, looking at earlier I said we are talking of about 30 million subscribers, but if they don't access it, I don't know, you correct me if I'm wrong, what percentage of these 30 million subscribers have smartphone?
That's right.
They are very few.
Very few.
Which means they can't access some of these solutions.
Absolutely.
Now, talking about that offering solution on the, especially on moving data, and data is related to information. You want to get that information quickly. You want to really make information be a powerful tool for you to make decisions, for you to see opportunities and seize them. As a company, I've seen for the past 1 year or so, you have transformed yourself, moving from just being a communication company and going into a technology company. Was that a matter of the communication to the public, or was it a strategic thing Vodacom is looking at positioning itself differently?
A bit of both, actually, Bakari. So you're right, you're absolutely correct. We have, over time, done what we internally talk about, a journey from being a telco to being a techco. And I think that's important for us because you may remember we've always talked about the future is exciting, and we've always sort of said, look, the future is exciting. And the reason for that, Bakari, is because when you look at how we started and where we came from, we're predominantly into SMS and voice. Those are our main services. And so to that extent, very much a communications company, a telco. However, as life has continued and as technology has evolved, as we've continued to invest in our technology, what it's really become for us is, and also the other part which is super important for us is, as technology has improved, but also as we are a purpose-led company, and I think purpose-led for us is really about saying how do we impact the life of Tanzanians. So we've got this purpose, we've got technology growing, and to that extent we feel we are more than a telco, but a techco. And so what we look at in that regard is we now talk about together we can. Pamoja tunaweza. And what we're saying there, Bakari, is we're saying with the power of our platforms, with the power of our technology, and that ingenuity, that human spirit within the people of Tanzania, together we can achieve far greater things in this digital economy. Together we can take that steps to digitize government in different areas and make that more efficient in different parts, to make private sector more efficient, to all across. There's not a single sector that won't benefit from digitization. And so that's the journey for us, from telco to techco. A lot to do with our purpose, a lot to do with changing the lives of those who use our products and services, and therefore enhancing the overall feel.
Sounds familiar with us from the media point of view. As Mwananchi Communication, as Nation Media Group, which is our parent company, we also moved from just being a mere news company.
Right.
We are talking ourselves now rebranding as a content company, which means we are not focusing at just breaking that story, just doing those current affairs issues, but we are looking at what is it for us to package for decision makers, for businesses, for anyone who is doing economic activities, to be able to access the information they want to help them make those good decisions. So with content, you're talking of you're looking at opportunities going into production of even music, production of packaging, documentary, movies. You're talking about how do you collect data, make meaning out of it, and sell to the public. So it speaks the same way of looking at the challenges you are facing as a company with the digital disruption, where everyone now is able to post that story. In the past, we used to have that monopoly. Something happens, they'll be waiting for the newspaper the next day.
Right.
Today, something happens here, you find it all over social media. Now our job now is to analyze, is to tell why things happen the way they do. So I think those are sort of transformation which the business and the regulators and stakeholders need to continue engaging, looking at how do we move forward with that.
And Bakari, that's so interesting. I love the way you've put it across from your own personal perspective in the media, because I think one of the things that also happens is sometimes we might not say it aloud, but we fear digitization. We fear what it brings. But actually, the story that you are unfolding and telling from your part really says actually you had to accept that things had changed, and therefore, what value shift were you then going to be part of in terms of how does that pivot? And I think a lot of digitization is not about actually reducing jobs, etc.
No.
On the contrary, it actually increases it. But there's shifts in terms of what that looks like, what that employment is going to do, and what value it adds in different elements. And so that's very encouraging to hear from a media perspective, because I can only imagine that it has been quite a transformational journey from the days of everyone waiting for their newspaper and sitting around. I mean, I'm sure physical print is still is obviously still got its place, but no doubt that's been an interesting journey for you.
It has been very interesting, and the challenges actually which come with that for us is now we try to occupy this new space. We are coming to realization that digital skills, the mindset shift, the way we used to think, how do we produce content now, how do we look at giving solution to people. So I don't know what it looks like in your industry in terms of the challenges of skills, in terms of skills, but for us, it's an area where we think as an industry, we need to invest in more. And the young people coming from college now, they are very, very creative, very enterprising. They just need to be guided and then given that opportunity to define their future.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I think the skill set gap and what role does everyone play in that? Again, we've got something at Vodacom that we talk about, one more skill. So what's your one more skill that you're learning as you grow and digitize? I know for me, my children are always teaching me one more skill on my phone or my iPad, and how do you do this? And you know, so I think it's really about how we begin to learn that one more skill for ourselves, but equally for the industry has a responsibility to be able to usher through and provide learning opportunities for people coming through, just in terms of how do they grow their digital skills. We have particular programs, things like Code Like a Girl, where we've taken well over 1,000 young ladies and taken them into training to be able to upskill them in their technical skills and their technology skills. We're involved with supporting different startups through the Vodacom Digital Lab. And that kind of investment in skills is absolutely crucial. I think that partnership, again, there comes that word, that partnership between, again, private sector and educational institutions in terms of how you embed a digital sort of learning a lot earlier in curriculums and et cetera is crucial. So I think the responsibility on uplifting the digital skill set again sits with everyone across and will only be achieved through partnership.
Absolutely. And I was reading a report which was released by the World Economic Forum just last week, and if I may refer to it. Don't know if you've come across it.
I believe I did. Yes, I have. I have come across it.
The report says tech startups key to Africa's digital transformation, but urgently need investment. And some of the key highlights from this report and the recommendation says startup funding in Africa topped to $1.2 billion in 2020, which is a six-fold increase in the past 5 years. But compared to the rest of the world, that is just less than 1% of the value which the US startups raised. So see, we still have a lot of catching up to do. And looking at the report further highlights say Africa is trailing behind the world in developing a knowledge-based digital economy. We're talking about those skills gap. And then it say government can change this by fueling tech startups and the other small business through incentives and the investment in workforce skills.
Yes.
And I was touched by an example. The report picks on Tunisia.
Yes.
In Tunisia, if you have a startup and you left your job, you go establish a company, they give an incentive of up to 3 directors of that new startup. The government pay them salaries.
Oh, wow.
And if you fail, after 2-3 years, you'll be allowed to go back to
That's incredible.
your job, old job. So those kind of thinking out of the box incentives, I think they aim at seeing to what extent do we facilitate the coming up of new company and startups. What's your view?
You know, my reflections on that, Bakari, is that when you look at investing in startups, it really is competing for a capital that's competing for other sort of developing areas, other businesses, etc. Some more established, some expanding, etc. And I think it comes down to ultimately, as any investor would, to a risk appetite for what people want to put into startups.
Absolutely.
And I'd look around and I'd think perhaps part of it is that on the continent we don't have as big, a reference point for strong, successful startups, and hence the risk appetite for investing is still perhaps lower than what it is, obviously coupled with the availability of capital in general. But I do think, again, my collective view of that in terms of how do we collectively look at that, it is about providing capital, but it's about reducing the risk for some of the startups. And some of the risk is not about the idea itself, it's about was their skill set in then executing it, and then maybe taking the different strategic options. So we had the great idea, we had a couple of roads we could have gone down, and so I think the things such as, and it's not the only thing, but I'm just referencing to it as an example, as the Vodacom Digital Lab, where we're able to support startups not just in capital, but in resource, in thought process, in support around various decision-making points, etc., and almost mentor them through that, providing perhaps what I'd then hope is a higher success rate of startups. As you get that higher success rate, clearly the capital that starts to shift to startups, etc., will inevitably increase. I know it sounds simple, and it's not.
It's not.
There are many challenges to that, but I think it's a fair, absolutely fair call out by the WF report.
And talking about startups, I was reading about your campaign on Africa.connected, and here is the report which says actually we need to, startups have a role to play.
Yes.
To take Africa into the digital economy.
Yeah.
But the bet is on investment. How do you link it with this campaign on connecting Africa? We've talked about the challenges of one country having different tax regime from one country to another, and now you want to connect it. How do you go about actually dealing with those 50 plus stakeholders?
Yeah, I think the challenge on the continent is, you know, and I think there are many things when you look at the European Union that are enviable. There are many things that aren't enviable. But again, I think, you know, your point earlier on about unlearning. How do you learn to unlearn? What are the things that could make us a lot more aligned in our policy and regulatory framework on the continent, which again will start to have those same effects, Bakari, around sort of stability of investment, because there's an understanding of a very stable environment across, not a specific country by country, and how does that really work together. So I think we've got a lot just from a policymakers and regulators to really try and come a little bit closer to each other and have policies that are a lot more united, and in that sense make it a lot easier to do business with each other, firstly, even in small things like roaming, etc., but in broader things around fiber, cross-country fiber, etc., terrestrial fiber. So I think there's a lot of things that that would help from that perspective to really strengthen the case, the investment case for investing in Africa. You know, I think Africa Connected for us is really about helping to close that digital divide across the continent, and it's a big continent, and no single player can do it on their own.
Thank you. I think this is very, very interesting. I think let's see if we have any question or comment from our audiences. Maybe we pick one or two and then we wrap up.
Sure, sounds good.
Yeah, let me see. I don't see any here. It's on. Yeah. This one here comes from this comes from Moshi, NS Moshi. He says, do we in Tanzania have a place-related business that is positively and negatively impacted by the multiplication of mobile devices?
Can you just ask that question again, sorry? Do
we in Tanzania have a place-related business that is positively or negatively impacted by the multiplication of mobile devices? Trying to understand this question. Maybe it means you have one set, two sets of mobile devices, or you have an iPhone, you have an iPad, I don't know.
Look, and apologies, Moshi, if I'm not understanding your question.
Let me see if
but perhaps while you're looking for that, maybe I'll just continue and just give some thoughts on what I think that could be talking to. If I get it wrong, please please reach out and we can have that dialogue. But I think there's an element of what we call multi-SIMming. So people with multiple SIM cards, and choosing between, it's a very price-sensitive market, and therefore people switch between SIM cards, etc. And so ultimately, you know, even sometimes when you see the number of smartphones in the country could also be a deceptive number, because some people are carrying two, so it's still not quite related to what the true penetration is, because I think we're still significantly low. You know, so I'm not sure where the question was going, but I think absolutely to be categorically clear, the broadband penetration target of 80% will only be achieved through a higher penetration of 3G and 4G devices, and unless we do the shifts we need to from the older 2G devices, we're constantly going to be behind the curve on that collectively.
And I've got three more questions here. Victor Abimerwa says, stakeholders in the communications sector need to engage the government and review regulation that guide privacy in effort to protect customers' data privacy.
Yeah. Customer data privacy, Victor, is, for Victor to say to him, that is topmost for us, as certainly as a business, but also as the industry. And I think it's, we have very rigid controls in place around guarding customer data privacy and obviously operate within the bounds of the local law. I agree that there must be continual engagement with the policymakers to really understand what works, what doesn't. At the moment, for example, we are having conversations as we start to see a much bigger shift into cloud and hosting. What does that look like? Where's that data stored? Is there access to that data, etc.? I think what we're trying to prove and trying to work out is, what does secure data look like? How is it treated? Are we comfortable and clear on the policies around that? And I think that will continue to emerge. I believe from a policy-making perspective, that is probably a skill set area that needs further development across the continent, but in Tanzania in particular as well. So yes, I couldn't agree more with Victor.
Yeah, and actually looking at it from the media point of view, we also have that privacy policy. We say don't reveal your sources. So we have a duty of protecting our sources.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Charles Mponzi, is education the only way out in the digital divide?
Oh no, not at all. Yeah. Education is one of the, and I wouldn't even say ways out. I wouldn't see it as a way out. Is one of the enablers, because it's not about a way out. It's about how we're getting somewhere. Education, I'd say, is an important one, but only one of. There are many others which we've spoken about earlier. But yes.
The last one, we are running out of time, comes from Maro Joseph, says, network in rural setting need to be improved so that there may not be a major divide with urban areas. You talked about this.
Correct. And just the one point I'll say on that is the need for us to increase our optic fiber rollout in this country. We've got about, collectively between public and private fiber, about 13,000 kilometers of optic fiber. If you look at other countries, depending on size, if I just call out Kenya, for example, they've got 31,000 kilometers of fiber. And so we need that for resilience, we need that for capacity increase. So that question's absolutely correct. The network in the rural areas does need to be improved, and that will happen as the fiber rollout continues. But again, it comes back to the sustainability and the profitability of the industry.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the power of dialogue. We'll continue to engage the government, the regulators, and all other stakeholders to have this kind of conversation. And it's great to have this conversation with you. And we are looking forward to having our Thought Leadership Forum, Mwananchi Thought Leadership Forum, on Thursday at Serena Hotel, where we'll be discussing further bridging the digital divide. And this time we'll have a cross-section of speakers who come from different disciplines, public, private sector, and civil society, to discuss how do we take further these challenges and suggest solutions rather than putting out criticism. Ours is to engage and find solution together. And we'll be blessed to have the minister himself, Minister Nape Mnauye, who will be officiating our event. My brother, thank you very much.
Bakari, thank you. I really look forward to that. Look forward to Thursday's Thought Leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
From Vodacom Tanzania, from myself, Bakari, and my brother Sito, tunasema kwaherini mpaka wakati mwingine. Asante sana.
Asante sana.